Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Business as a Magical Practice. We have a very special guest today. I am here with Cara Kovacs. Cara is a third generation healer specializing in merging inherited spiritual modalities with clinical practice. She's a published author and works with private clients and is currently guiding 105 people through a transformational container of ancestral healing in ancestral alchemy. So thank you so much for being here with me, Cara.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for helping me launch Ancestral Alchemy.
Yeah.
Like,
So that's a little bit more of the background. Dirty Alchemy Digital Marketing just finished up launching with Kara on her brand new online program, Ancestral Alchemy. So we're all in celebration mode. She's shimmying if you're watching on YouTube.
Yeah, it's definitely something to dance about.
Well, so before we get into launch stuff, I would love to hear you tell your story of how you got into entrepreneurship because I know you didn't start off right out the back in that.
Yeah, so I did go to school for what I do, but I got sidetracked in my 20s. And I think that I wasn't ready to birth a business, or even I always knew, and I think a lot of people will say this, like, I knew that there was something that I was meant to do, and I didn't know what it was or how to access it. And I always had that feeling. And I think I was just sort of more of an aimless party girl in my 20s in New York City, and I had like 27 jobs all the time. I have had pretty much every single side hustle. So I think that like the energy of being an entrepreneur always lived in me because I was always like, I'm tutoring and I'm babysitting and I'm a production assistant and I'm in grad school and I'm like doing copywriting and I like had an Instagram style blog. Like I was always doing 30 things. So entrepreneurship fit me very easily, but I didn't have a mission behind it at all. It was more about like, maybe if I do all of these things, I'll figure out what I want to do and also how much money can I make. So it was really more of that energy. And I have type 1 diabetes. So health insurance was always a really big concern of mine. And when I was 26, I took a job for health insurance. And it was my first, like, finger quotes if you're listening, real job. And I was a personal assistant for three hedge fund managers and their families. And it broke my spirit. It was like three Miranda Priestleys. It was really bad. It was just bad vibes all around all the time. I was so depressed. Um, and I knew that this like wasn't what I had signed up for. I had gone to school for theories and politics of sexuality. I went to grad school for social work, and I wanted out, but I didn't know what out looked like because I was really afraid of losing health insurance. So a very magical series of events. And magical, also tragic. My dad was diagnosed with dementia. And so I decided to move home and kind of figure out what was, what he was going to need. What could I do about it? I'm an only child on his side. On my mom's side, I have two brothers, but on his side, I'm the only one. And so I got family medical leave of absence from that horrible job. And it was a very magical series of situations because they sent me out to do some errands, and some horrible things transpired where I actually ended up getting like a really nice severance package. Because human resources was like, you guys are crazy. And that's as much into it as I'm going to go. And I had health insurance for 6 months, and then I had Cobra. And so I came home like very well set up to kind of be like, okay, what's next? And I had no idea what was next, but this is what happens when you trust the universe and you take, a really dramatic leap towards asking to be shown and being a co-creator and surrendering with the process at the same time. Like, it was all very magical for me. It felt really elevated in my nervous system, like a yes, when I was making these scary decisions. And I came home and I said to my mom, oh, I want to learn your oracle deck while I'm home. And my mom's like, "That's weird. I bought a new one last night. Like, here's my old one." And I already intuitively knew how to read it because I had watched her do it so many times. She attuned me as a Reiki master while I was living with her. And my mom does like aura reading workshops and Reiki mastership trainings and like all these different spiritual workshops. I'm sitting in her office right now, actually. So I
Oh,
learned
beautiful.
they
Like, I'm glad you moved into there from downstairs.
so yeah, there it's like covered in crystals and singing bowls. So I like
Peacock feathers, it's very luxurious.
I feel like I went to like spiritual like grad school or like spiritual summer camp because by the time that I left, I moved home for I think 4 or 5 months, and by the time that I
Is
left
home Florida or New York? Okay.
Florida, I was like co-facilitating Reiki circles with her in the living room, and I didn't realize, until I had the language of spirit, that the reason that I hadn't pursued therapy, I thought it was because I didn't want to work for a social worker's salary. Like that's what I thought the reason was, but I didn't have spirituality to add to my practice. And having that language really enabled me to deepen the connection to how I wanted to impact people and to understand like what I had to share with people because it wasn't just what I had gone to school for. It was what's in my blood. It's from my mom, it's from my grandpa, it's from my grandma. Like I come from a really long line of healers. And I went back to New York and did the same hustle I was doing before I took that personal assistant job and started doing card readings at like really famous nightclubs there, like at Employees Only and House of Yes, till like 4 in the morning. I would just be like slinging readings all night, like 5 days a week. And then I would get in touch with some of the spiritual centers there and I started teaching. And I love teaching. Teaching is my favorite thing to do. And it just sort of evolved from that space. I enrolled in a tantra training program and I just took all these like certifications and really like entrenched myself in spirit as a medium and created a practice that is authentic to who I am um, over the course of the next kind of year or so.
And now you're here. Was it hard to go from like a super hustle mentality or like doing a bajillion things at once to having a really clear focus? This is my business. These are my offers. Was that a difficult transition?
I think it was like a transition that I didn't even because before we got on, you asked me, how old is my business, and I was doing the hustle until June of this year.
Mm.
Business is now in January 2021. It's 2.5 years old. So like I did the hustle the first 2 years. And I think that that was a lot of the indoctrination of like capitalism and, living in patriarchy of like, it needs to be hard. You need to work really hard. It takes a certain amount of time for it to happen. And I also like the fear, right, of me of like, I need to afford my very expensive Cobra health insurance plan. So I had side hustles the whole time. Like, yes, I was doing card readings and coaching clients and teaching classes. I was also still doing like per diem personal assistant stuff. I was doing copywriting where I was writing like sex and relationship advice pieces for Tinder. I was doing like little administrative things for a woman who runs a meditation school. So I was like working more with people who were more aligned with what I was doing, but I was still very much in hustle mode. And when the pandemic hit, I really opened myself up to be of service. I started doing free readings on Instagram Live every single day the first couple weeks of quarantine. And I got so inundated with people who wanted to book appointments with me because of that, that I very much realized that like what I had created was not sustainable for myself. And I could only make more money if I started to cut things out. And having the permission slip to cut things out created like a rapid ascension process that probably could have happened sooner, but like I believe in divine timing. So it happened exactly how it was supposed to happen of, oh, I don't offer card readings anymore. Like I don't have time to offer card readings if I'm going to coach clients. Like I don't have time to have side hustles if I'm going to coach clients, and serving my one-on-one clients and teaching classes became the two things that I loved the most and the only things that I really wanted to be doing the whole time. And I like incrementally started to cut everything else away.
So I was actually thinking about this over the weekend, how we are so like us as women, as business owners, we're expected to do in the modern world, not even as business owners, we're expected to do so many things and like raise the family, like keep ourselves in a very small box of what we should look like, and like all these different things all at once. And as we step into entrepreneurship, we're stepping into what has traditionally been a man's world, right? And it's men respond to cortisol in such a different level. Like their body's pretty much made to respond to cortisol levels and do well with it, and women aren't. Like, and how can we go through this process of slowing ourselves down so we can be in this parasympathetic state, because that's where we really thrive and that's where our like juice comes from. And it is so hard, even as spiritual entrepreneurs, to like get ourselves there.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I think self care is so huge when you want to share your magic with other people. And for me, that comes down to integrity, which is one of the core pillars of my business, and something that I talk about a lot is like looking at Brene Brown's list of core values and like picking your core values for your life and for your business if you have a business. And integrity has always been my top one. And I have always felt that I can't be in integrity in terms of being a service provider if I'm not doing work to like look at my unconscious bias, to make sure that I'm receiving mental health supervision so that I'm going to people from a clear space, to do work about understanding my complacency inside of systems of oppression, and really looking at that from a holistic perspective. So I think when you're talking about getting yourself into a space of being able to receive and be efficient, for me, that has always come down to self care actually being a part of how I stay in integrity with the work that I provide. Whether that looks like meditation or yoga. And let's be real, also in like the heavy, heavy months of quarantine, my meditation practice went out the window. And that too is about like giving yourself the grace to see when the world is in global crisis, like what does it mean to be in integrity, and like how do your behaviors and your patterns shift, and how do you uphold, because it's hard to drop into your parasympathetic nervous system in a global pandemic. Yeah. Hmm.
So, do you have any specific self-care things that you love doing?
Well, I think now, having supervision, and I mean, that's always been there. Like, so I have people that are also healers, and
Mm.
we talk with each other, maintaining our boundaries of confidentiality, but to receive feedback. If I feel like I have a blind spot, I have a really tight knit group of friends who are also practitioners who I will gut check myself with, and then also investing in my own coaching. Like as a coach, one of the biggest pieces of information that impacted me that I think can help other entrepreneurs who, particularly spiritual ones, but all entrepreneurs, if you are going to someone and saying, like, please spend $5,000 for me to coach you, but you are unwilling to go and invest that money in yourself, then you are not in integrity. And it's going to be very hard for people to trust that you're worth spending $5,000 on, because you're essentially selling them something that you wouldn't go buy for yourself. And so going and paying for outside support has been invaluable, even just to process, like, this is coming up. How can I handle it really well so I can be sure that when I say things to people, particularly in an arena like coaching, where it's not accredited and I'm not being held by like the licensure of a state board, to really be making sure that I have that, and also that it's a safe space for me to process whatever the heck is going on in my life. Renewing my meditation practice after that slip was super invaluable. I'm also a big proponent of plant medicine. I love a good microdose. I love a good like journey with inquiry about it. I follow the moon cycles. I pray every single day. I am in like constant communication, asking my ancestors for support. My mom reads cards for me when I am not objective enough to read them for myself. So there are a lot of different modalities, but I'm also a big fan, and something I tell to people when I teach is like, what resonates for you? Like what speaks to you? I'm not going to give you a spell. It's not like a recipe. And when I cook, I'm the same way. I don't follow measurements. I'm just like, a little bit of this, and then, like throw things in the bowl and see what happens. It's just kind of my style. So whatever's calling to you, if you go to a store and you see a card deck and you're like, "Oh, that's pretty," like that's the one you should buy, not the one that I tell you to buy. Um, and feel into, even with meditation, is it mantra based? Are you going to go and listen to some Tibetan bowls? Like whatever it is, find what works for you and celebrate it and explore it, and don't judge it too much.
So, okay, how does, because I'm also someone who like I day by day everything changes a lot, and I just kind of go with I got a lot going on, so whatever feels good I'm going with it. But I've also gotten so much about consistency in certain spiritual practices, or just like straight up practices, even when I don't want to do that. So how does the like following your desires meet consistency and dedication and devotion?
I think this is a good time to bring up how we have the exact same birthday.
Yeah, we like literally same year and everything. We're also both manifestors in human design. Like we have a lot of overlap, which is so interesting because I actually like I can see like a lot of similarities, but I also see a lot of differences.
Totally. And I think that, like, first of all, I knew that I wanted to work with you based on us having the same birthday. Like, I'm sure I was listening to the rest of our first call together, but like that's what I remember. I remember leaving that call and being like, "We have the same birthday, so obviously the angels sent her to me."
Did you know it at that point? Like I thought it was just because we like I was supporting someone who you respected a lot. And I don't think I thought we didn't figure out the birthday thing until like a week or two later.
I thought it was the first call because
Okay,
I
I didn't
remember
know for
going.
a while. So you knew more than I did.
'Cause I just remember going. I mean, I could be wrong, but I remember like going to everyone in my life and being like, "And she has the same birthday as me," and that was like like irrefutable evidence of like why my launch was going to go really well.
I mean, what a sign of self-love, you know? Like, you just wanna work with someone with the exact same birthday as you.
And of course, I trust her to send things out, and they won't have typos in them because we have the same birthday. Like, and every time I would get something really nice, I'd be like, "You see how beautiful she made it? It's because we have the same birthday." But when you're asking about consistency with a spiritual practice and also being like over here, over there, like I'm hearing, the like the Gemini Virgo that's in both of us, of like really being oriented to concepts and ideologies, which is Mercury rules Gemini and Virgo. So like a seeker learning kind of energy. But Gemini is not as regimented as Virgo about it because they're the air expression of it. So they're like, a little over here, a little over here. I'm going to try this. I'm going to try that. Ooh, that sounds exciting. Like whatever, whatever. Whereas Virgo is like, you should go sit for 10 minutes a day and like breathe in and out. And I think that what I'm hearing you say is that you're a little bit more fluid with it. And so am I. Cancer moon as well. Our internal spiritual connection is intuitive. So we're going to trust our intuition because it guides our internal landscape, but that we have an appreciation for regimentation, even when it doesn't feel good.
Mhm,
That's very Virgo.
mhm,
Like I hear our shared astrology in your question. And I think for me, the one thing that I do with that is community and like lunar worship, Cancer moon. But every single month on the full moon, I have my full moon club with my people, and we have two incredible astrologers who lead it and somebody who does the ancestral healing meditation. And I created the community, but it's actually like the space where I kind of like let them do all the talking and just like organize it and like put it together and help with the structural formatting of it, but I do very little teaching there. But for me, that is where I have like consistency, where there's a space. It's almost like a house of worship to me. Like there's a space, I'm going, I'm getting something out of it. Other things that I do like that, or I listen to Channy's astrological forecasts every single Monday, and I'm like, okay, what do I need to know this week? So I think like following astrology religiously even though I'm not an expert, but I follow it religiously, is the way that I am regimented with it. I'm probably not regimented with many other things. I exercise a lot.
Do you? I'm having like such a hard time being consistent with exercise.
It helps my blood sugar.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. If I like don't do it, my numbers get all wonky. So I actually have like a really good relationship to it.
That's epic. Wow.
Yeah, it's also like cheaper. You need less insulin when you exercise. So,
I mean, benefits of diabetes? I don't know.
I think about it from like the spiritual standpoint too, of like my karmic journey with diabetes. Like there are things that it gives, or if I were to existential kink it, I'll let Carolyn Elliott's work, that part of me gets off on having diabetes in some way.
Mm.
It does keep me skinnier than I would be otherwise.
Oh my god. Like we won't go there. We
Diabetes
won't go
is a
into
whole other podcast topic. I'm not going to get I don't want to sidetrack us too much with it, but there's like a
we're
whole lot.
getting sidetracked, you guys. It's fine. But okay, so going back to our shared birthdays though, it was interesting for me because I haven't had as much of a psychic connection with any other client except for you. Like it was we had a really, really intense like I mean, it's beautiful, but it was also like when we both went into anxiety spirals at the same time as like I think you're like a fairly anxious person too, right? Like you like anxiety is like a part of your experience a lot, like me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's Virgo. Like, I think if Virgo was a body part, it would be like a clenched butthole.
That's horrible. I'm not expecting that. I'm sorry.
Well, it's all. I think it's true in the sense too of like Virgo being like the secret slut of the zodiac because like they're a clenched butthole. So you can take it however you want to take it.
Fair. Okay. Have you had issues having like empathic or psychic boundaries with clients?
Uh, I think that I, in general, have struggled with caring way too much in all facets of my business.
Mhm.
So unlike you, the like one way that our charts differ is that I'm a Leo rising. And so like receiving affirmation that I did a good job or that I did it the right way or that I was impactful or that somebody liked me uh has always been in its shadow manifestation like an Achilles heel for me.
Mhm.
And that very often lends itself to uh like blurring the boundaries because I want to make sure that I'm like doing a good job or like helping someone the best. um I'm being reminded of something I heard Ram Dass say on one of his podcast episodes. It was like a recorded old talk, but he was talking about how, and I've always really resonated with this, that the most prolific, like most beloved spiritual teachers are still all wrapped up in their ego, and that he could go do like a weekend conference and he'd be like, I'd kill the talk on Friday, I knew they loved it, they loved the talk, and then on Saturday I'd kill the talk, like I knew they loved it, and then on Sunday I can see this guy sitting in the front row and he looks upset and his whole body is clenched and I'm sitting there thinking he hates me, I'm horrible, I've messed it all up, I've lost them, but like really the guy like has to go to the bathroom. And I remember hearing that and being like, oh, that's what's happening to me. Like, I'm imagining that, like, every single action that somebody has is a reflection of how good or bad or wrong or right or worthy I am to have this job and be this person. And I think that that has been like a constant thing for me that's one of the reasons I have like supervision and pay for my own private coaching.
Mhm. Mm.
So I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, I was coming at like I started with this was my first big experience where I felt really psychically connected with the client to the point where it was not useful or helpful. Like it was bad for me. um, not that you are bad for me, but like I needed to like pay attention to it because I wasn't I needed to put things in place. Like I started like surrounding myself in black tourmaline because I was like, oh, I need to like keep myself to myself and keep people separate and or else this isn't healthy. So it was just interesting. And I was wondering if you, as someone who is more works with people more on those levels, is that something, are those sorts of practices a really important part of your work?
So when I go to my pranic healer, who I have introduced you to, who I'm obsessed with, she tells me that the spleen is the place in the body that holds the energy of other people, and
Mm.
that because she works, clearing out people's negative energy all day, that like her method for making sure that you're not carrying that with you. I wish we had had this conversation earlier, like during the launch, because I would have told you this. um, but her method, which she gave to me, which works really well for me, and it's very easy, this is to just cut the energy cord from the spleen
Mm.
at the end of the workday. So you just kind of like quickly wipe your hands down that side of your body and go, enough, and you like literally cut it. That's
I love it.
all I do.
And it works?
Yeah, it works fine.
That's
I mean, I also will sage, like, I'm like, okay, the workday is over. I like to sage my technology,
Mhm.
and that's it. That's all I do.
Well, your advice is gonna make Eddie very happy because
I'm like, oh my God, I was bad. I
no,
was bad.
you weren't. No, 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 no. This is okay. Let's. You were amazing. I got some amazing lessons in how to keep my energy, my own energy, and it was a very necessary lesson as someone who works on the computer and is also empathic. So thank you.
Do you think that it's because since we have the same birthday, and something that I feel is empowered by my astrology, which I imagine you share because we are both young, self made female entrepreneurs who are successful, that we're both very powerful inherently, and that is what you were like feeling was like our like auric power kind of like bumping up against each other.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, it could also be like us mirroring each other because we have like so many similarities and us just like showing, just straight up being mirrors for each other and suddenly like activating each other's people pleasingness and this like weird spiral of.
Yeah. Yeah, and like wanting, like, I to me it still comes from like wanting to do a good job, like wanting everyone, whether it's a client or someone who's working for me or someone who is like I meet at a store or a friend, like I want you to know that like I did right by you. You know that, right?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so before we dive deeper into our relationship,
Have that over text later.
continued via audio message later, done. Let's talk about your very first program launch. So I know that
Yeah.
you have done like small group coaching launches before, but very simple, more simple than what we did in Q4 2020.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. I mean, this was my first big launch. uh the other launches that I've done were like 12 to 20 people and just like my immediate network. So there was no advertising, there was no fleshing out of like a really long duration of a program. I had never outsourced help before. This was also the first program that I was doing that was a year. So that's a much longer container. The other ones I did like an 8 week and a 4 week, so a very different ball game that we were playing. I knew immediately that I wanted to work with you because we had the same birthday. That was how I made that decision. um, but Really, my goal was to create a dynamic container inspired by astrology, through which people could examine different components of their own healing. And I called it ancestral alchemy, which, oh, and that this was another reason I wanted to work with you, dirty alchemy, ancestral alchemy. That like alchemical idea was like really strong for both of us. Um, but I was thinking about ancestral trauma, which is something that I work in deeply. But most of my work with private clients before launching Ancestral Alchemy was all around sex and dating and love and intimacy and like personal confidence kind of stuff. So I was 99% of the time helping women claim confidence in their relationship dynamics and sexual journeys. And most of that leads back to ancestral trauma, because ancestral trauma is literally like all trauma that we have comes from our ancestry, whether we're looking at relationships or confidence or money or our propensity towards anger or anxiety or depression. If we're looking at systems of oppression, we inherited the laws and the buildings and the governments that we inhabit. So, like, all of it is ancestral. And I wanted to use astrology as a guidebook to really address different components of it in a dynamic way. And all of my inherited abilities, like my practice, it has always been inherently ancestral, because I'm in my mom's office right now. Like, I would not be here if my mom hadn't taught me how to do what I do. And I have a pretty extensive, like, on the other hand, trauma narrative. You know, I'm a survivor of sexual abuse, I'm a survivor of domestic violence. I come from a mixed race family of divorce with like a bunch of alcohol abuse issues and mental health issues. So I see like both sides very clearly, like the gifts and then the shadow elements of my ancestry. And I've done, you know, my undergrad, my grad school degree, and like over a decade of therapy looking at my own issues around and within this work. So I wanted to create a space where people could dive into that. And I also wanted to be a space that was intersectional, that would highlight the voices of Black and Brown teachers. I got the idea for the program around May. So I really wanted to highlight the incredible people that I've had the privilege of working with in this field. You know, like Nina, who does the astrology forecast at my moon crew. She's an incredible teacher. I wanted to bring her into my community. Shadine Francis, who is teaching the sexuality component of the program, was a woman I had done a panel with, and she like blew my freaking mind. So I also wanted to create this space that like highlighted the voices of people that I really wanted to put my like my name and confidence and energy behind, and say like, hey community, meet this cool person who can change your life, and meet this cool person who can change your life, while giving everything that I had learned a voice. And then the other component of that is teaching is my favorite thing to do. And I was sick of trying to teach it, what this community, that community, this yoga studio, whatever, online. I wanted my own consistent space where I just got to show up with my people every single month. So I knew that it was a group program. I knew that it was going to be a big project, and I knew that I couldn't do it alone. So I found you, and basically you made it happen, and it wouldn't have happened without you. And I'm so grateful. And there are over 100 people in it.
Yeah, for a very first launch, which is major, and Cara didn't realize that was a major deal.
I came in with some great, I'm a manifester. So I was like, I'm going to get like 300 some odd people in this program, and like, da 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 da. I think I said in one of our first calls, if I don't get at least 150, and I don't want to do it because I'm just crazy. Thank you for
And
being there.
now you've gone through your first launch, and it's so interesting because a lot of people can see other people's success and be like, oh, that's so easy. Oh, that like, of course, like that's got to be so easy to do. I have this amazing offer. Of course people are going to buy. Of course people are going to sign up. And it's actually like this whole process. It's your own, it's understanding the psychology. Like, I'm assuming anyone listening has the intention of like changing the world through their offerings. Like they're bringing their highest caliber to change the world, change their clients, change their audience. So starting with that assumption,
Mm.
you have to understand the psychology behind selling, and you have to understand like what's going on in your customers' heads or your audience's heads, and like being able to coach them and have a transformation before ever paying you. And then like from there, there's also all of the internal work of like being visible, being rejected. Like, do you actually want to be chained to people and like deliver on the offer that you're giving? There's just, it's such a high sensation process launching. So now you're through your first one.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you're saying that, and I really hope that this supports other people doing it. And all the books that I read, the main one being Launched by Jeff Walker, but like all of the books that I read that kept saying like it's a very intense experience to do your first launch, and none of them are like the first launch. Now being on the other side of it, I'm like, oh, never doing that to myself again, never doing that to Sam again. Like I, you have to stretch yourself so much. And being a perfectionist and a high achieving Virgo who wants to change the world, I think that the expectations versus reality barometer for first time launchers or new entrepreneurs is something to be compassionate with yourself about, because I'm really grateful for the learning opportunity. And I'm curious if you feel like you do this to yourself as well, because this is feedback that I've gotten from a lot of energy healers and psychics that I've spoken to in my life, where they have told me that I make things 1,000 times harder for myself than they need to be. A la we had like a 4 week open cart, for example.
No, 4 different open cart periods. Like, it's fine.
Right? So I've been told like, oh, you're going to sign huge contracts in your life. Like, get ready to sign $300,000 book deals. Like, I've had psychics say that to me and be like, but you're pushing it away further and further with your like clinging energy to trying to have it. And that was so highlighted.
Yeah. Okay. So you asked me, so I'm going to answer what's happening for me right now, which is like we're launching our very first group program this year. And I think it's a manifestor thing where you're like, you see what you want and you want it now. You know, like you're like, I see the thing, I see the goal, I want it now. And every second that I don't have this is painful. And I've been like really sitting with timing, right? I'm like, I know that the group program is going to happen. It's going to be absolutely insane. So incredible. I'm so excited about it. It's going to be such artistry and like, so there's so much within it. And like coming back to the patience, like last week, Mars just went from Aries for the last few months into Taurus. And my friend told me that, and I like had a hissy fit. I was like, fuck no. Like, I want Mars and Aries. I want all this pushing power. Like, Mars is like conjunct my ascendant. Like, I need this. And I had to like come to terms with it over the weekend and like come back to like, oh my God, no, there's actually so much magic in Mars being in Taurus, because like, okay, let's put my energy and let's put my my focus on how to make this more three-dimensional, how to make it more sensual, how to make it like like all encompassing, holistic, full multidimensional being activating instead of just hitting my goal. So I feel the pressure so much. I don't know if it's a Virgo thing. I don't know if it's like an everyone thing, but yeah, I absolutely hear you. Feel
I
you.
love that though. That sounds like a really great way to alchemize the planetary energy.
Mhm. Yeah. So in terms of like making things harder, um, I don't know. I'm like I definitely fall into, I'm like teaching myself how to allow things to be easy. I think I have been. I think employing a team, I think giving energy to your business and like separating yourself from your business so your business can have energy of its own versus like it just drawing on your energy all the time. It's like it's all of these practices and um we're so conditioned, like all of us. I don't even think it's a chart thing. I think it's like all of us are conditioned to expect things to be hard. I'm from the Midwest where like your worth is connected with how hard you work. And like, and now I'm in Hawaii, which is like chill zone.
Yeah.
So,
And I think that I make things harder with my wanting and my manifesting. Like, I really resonated with what you said about that of like, I want it. And so I want it now.
mhm.
And the idea that that it's like a paradox. It's like it should be easy because it's a no-brainer and I know it's going to be amazing. So like why do I have to convince anybody of anything? And then like the game of that. And so it's very much like self-psychology and witnessing yourself and seeing your shadow and being in self-care, like meditating every single day, going to a healer, getting super, like all of that stuff times 10 in a launch
Mhm.
because you are being pushed to your ultimate potential to give, which means it's also like your ultimate potential to burn out, to get mad, to blur boundaries and all of that. So, definitely a good time to invest in self care.
Yeah, well, and it's also all most of the examples. I mean, I think this year, the last couple of years, I've seen more and more examples of women doing it in a feminine way in terms of launching and getting to success, getting to um, uh, great profit margins and revenue for their business. But most of our examples and most of like the marketing, even if they're women like teaching marketing, they're teaching a man's version of marketing. It is this, it's a lot of pushing and showmanship instead of like, okay, how can we actually like sit back and relax into seduction, relax into pleasure, relax into like drawing people in instead of this push. Like, I mean, I'm sure like you read in Launch, which was written by Jeff Walker, a like it's very masculine. And I don't and we are currently writing a new, I don't even know what to call it, like a new way of doing things as women, as successful women who aren't men, who aren't trying to just replicate men.
The name of your podcast, business is a magical practice. Like I think not only are we looking at it through the polarities of masculine and feminine energy, if we take gender out of it, like
Yeah, yeah,
however that
yeah.
resonates for you the listener, but also magic is not in in Launched by Jeff Walker. Like there's no magic in that. The first time I listened to that book, I was like, this is so boring. Like he keeps telling anecdotes. Like when is he going to stop telling anecdotes? And it is, I think, invaluable for first time launchers because it gives you the language. It gave me the idea to do a JV launch, whether or not was like really worth all the energy you spent making like 85 affiliate codes for me. Who knows? But we both know. But anyway, having that language I think is invaluable, but I haven't seen a book that's like launching with the moon cycles.
No, and that's something like through working with you because I am used to working with people who have launched before, so they kind of understand what's happening and what's going on and like how it's going to feel and what's going to happen. Where like you were like, oh, I had to read Jeff Walker's books. I didn't even know what a launch was, and I was like, wait, what? Like
I tricked
it made
you.
me realize like, oh, I actually need to make this resource. So
Yeah.
yeah. So, and that's actually no, it's something where we've actually created a PDF. It was our like free resource that people could opt in for a while called like the 8 phases of a numinous launch, and it is designed around the moon cycle, like not the actual moon cycle, but like realizing the cycles of nature is waxing and waning, right?
Yeah, I mean that was, and we planned my entire launch around astrology. It's an
Yeah.
astrology program, and I felt such there was fear that came up in that because I was like, oh my god, I'm launching a program that starts 4 days before Christmas. Like, who is gonna be thinking about buying this for themselves, like when they're trying to do holiday shopping? Like, this is a weird day. But it also intuitively guided was the day that I felt the stars said it needed to happen. And we still had a really successful launch. And I think that that's a good reminder of like being in alignment with your offering and with your community and speaking the language that you know that they're going to resonate with, that you can make magical decisions like that, that another person who is not invested in this kind of world would be like, why are you doing your launch like 4 days before Christmas? Do it like the second week of January.
Yeah, but it's also like how much self-awareness do you have to realize when you're pushing and making things harder versus versus like having divine inspiration or your intuition tap in. It's
Mhm.
sometimes a little gray.
Yeah, especially the first time. Like, I don't think that here, I hope for you.
What is she gonna say?
Like, I just don't think that it'll ever be like that again. Because we were talking about how we did like 4 phases of different open carts. So we did like a 3-day, hey, did you not get in? You can still get in at the end. And after the official launch date, it was like I woke up the next morning after having done the intro call with all the beautiful people who had decided, and like realizing like what a privilege it was to have had those people choose me as somebody that they wanted to work with for a year. I woke up the next morning and I was like, amazing. And I like didn't think about if anyone else was registering. Like, I completely released all of the internal agita that I had been experiencing and choosing for myself for like the entire launch period. And we ended up getting, I don't know, like 15 more people in during those days. I had no idea what the final number was. Before that, I was like counting every single person and writing them on like a little graph that I had on my altar and like praying for them and like, and I think it was so much easier to just totally not care.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
wonder how different my results would have been if I had been as detached as I was during that part of the launch the entire time. And so I know for next time, seeing the incredible people who are in my community, like the people who signed up for this program are fucking cool. And they love talking about everything I love talking about. And they are loving doing the work and they're having incredible results already. And like their really sweet posts in the Facebook make me cry. And I love working with them. And I'm like, oh, I was trying to sell to the people who didn't want to take this program with my internal agita, like with the anxiety that I was having. And instead of celebrating the people who've invested in me, I didn't give myself even permission to do that, talking about making things harder for
Mhm.
yourself. Until I got to see how dope they were and like how much I wanted to spend time with them and like really invest in their transformation outside of the sales process. Now I get to like deliver on the thing that I was so excited to make.
Mhm.
And so I think the next time around, like I'm just never ever going to do that to myself again. Like it's just like a total waste of energy.
Yeah. And like for people listening, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be hard. Like your first launch doesn't have to be hard and super stressful. Like let me, like I'm not trying to program that because that's not a requirement. But you will like having experienced it, you will know so much more on the other side. And that's why like I talk frequently that relaunching is so much easier than launching the first time. That's why
Mhm.
like I think it's so important to plan, be really intentional with the programs and offerings you do because if you just make it like make it one time and sell it forever and like it has a life of its own, it has energy of its own, it has a reputation of its own, that is
Mhm.
so much easier. It like stops being about you and it starts like it's its own thing. So yeah, it's gonna be easier next time, Kira.
I mean, I really, and I not only do I know that because I have been through the process and I now have like a lot more confidence in how it's going to go, but I also think it was a really beautiful space to witness some unresolved things that I have in
Mhm.
relation to my business, not just in launching, but in terms of uh, wanting people to like me.
Uh-huh.
It's so simple, but like such a, I was talking about it before. It's my Achilles heel. It's not serving me. I can't. And I think that going through the launch was a really beautiful place to surrender that. And now I've just stopped doing so many things that I was doing before. Like, I don't even look at how many followers I have. I don't even look at how many likes I get. I don't remember to respond to every single DM or comment. Like, I've put up so many new boundaries that have made it so much easier for me to just like love serving the people who've invested in me
Mhm.
and recognize that like none of that other stuff was making me money anyway. So like, who cares about it?
Yeah, doesn't feel good either.
No, and it's a waste of energy.
Yeah. No, it's so true. Um, okay, I wanna move on from the launch just because I want a few more questions and we're getting to your time limit. So this podcast is called Business as a Magical Practice. And I think we actually like just through talking about the launch, it's like really clear all of the ways that an online launch or just being within business and putting yourself on that level allows you to get to know yourself better and to become a more evolved soul. Do you have any more points you want to bring up on that level?
Yeah, well, it's something that my business coach, Carolyn Elliott, said to me, which is that people choose entrepreneurship for the spiritual journey.
Yeah.
Like, entrepreneurship is a spiritual journey. And she was like, and quite frankly, I remember when she said it to me because it was so funny the way that she was like, quite frankly, it's a very hard spiritual journey. Like, if you could be like a monk, you could just eat a bowl of rice every day and sit around. Like, being an entrepreneur is hard. So I think that there's just so much to be dug into around saying I'm going to be in charge of my own life. I am going to create the thing that sustains my life, and I'm going to choose that from a space of like deep love and commitment to that thing is really spiritual.
Mhm.
And even if you're not a spiritual person, like it will inevitably awaken within you so many different kinds of self-awareness, and whether you attribute that to your spiritual practice or not, it's just inherent in the process. Because trust is inherent in the process, and boundaries um, and creativity and imagination and betting on yourself and so many other things are also inherent in the process. So it just feels like a really spiritual journey to pick for oneself.
Yeah. And do you have any recommendations for people who are just starting out in business?
Mm. I was thinking about this actually today. Like, if you were to ask me that, what I would say. And I think the thing that you cannot uh, buy or learn, or like perhaps you can cultivate it, but you have to like organically find it, is knowing who you want to serve and how you want to serve them. And that can change because I've niched out in different ways over the course of my business. I've pivoted, like my offerings have pivoted. But feeling like really called to be of service in a specific way or to create a specific thing is something that has to happen organically. So if you have that, then like the sky's the limit. Like, trust that. Like, I wish that I could give people the inner knowing that like if they have that, that's like the hugest piece of it. Because finding that was like why I was aimlessly doing whatever, putzing around in my 20s, being like, there's something in me, but I don't know what it is. So trust the divine timing that when you awaken to it, like that's the thing. If you don't have that yet, then do the kinds of practices that help you get in touch with your intuition or your inner knowing. Like, I like to ask my ancestors to communicate to me in my dreams of like what I need to know next, and then write my dreams down in the morning and kind of be like, okay, so what was this about? I think that's really helpful. Asking in meditation, like you can ask and you can seek, but until you know that core mission, you're kind of shooting in the dark. If you have a core mission, invest in help, invest in support, invest in someone that can cut through all of the self-limiting beliefs and the making it harder on yourself than it needs to be kind of stuff, and knows because they've done it before. Like, if I had bought a business coach a year before I did, you and I would have made 3 times the amount that we made in this launch. I didn't maximize my profit until I trusted enough in myself to invest in somebody to support and guide me. And I really think that that's invaluable. Do you need that? No, you can definitely do it without it. I did it without it. I would have hit 6 figures this year without outside support, but I still would have been like struggling along each and every penny. And I would have been, like much more anxious about it the entire time and totally blind. And I think this is true because like I have a clinical therapy background. And so when you do like as a clinician, you have supervision as part of your job. You go to another therapist and you tell them like this client is going through this and this client is going through this. And they tell you back their feedback so that you make sure you're in alignment with them. That
I've
doesn't
never
exist.
heard of this before. I was wondering where you got the term supervision. I was like, what is she talking about? Okay, that's so
Yeah.
interesting.
So that's clinical supervision. And like anybody who has like a licensure, like an MSW or a psychotherapist, like they will have supervision.
Hmm.
I don't think all or even most coaches have supervision. But
Yeah.
I know for me, I have another client that I've referred you to who is a really good friend of mine and an excellent coach that like anytime we have issues come up in our work, we have like a container of mutual trust where we can, while respecting the confidentiality of our clients, gut check anything that's coming up for us, and share resources and share recommendations, like creating community around what it is that you're doing because we're not perfect. We do have blind spots. We do need support. We need other people to be our mirrors and reflect back to us. Where do I need to grow? What do I need to learn? And here's this book that changed my life. You should read it too. So I think that that is like a turbocharge for getting where you want to go in half the time. And I know people get so nervous of like, oh my God, this person is a huge investment or this program is a huge investment. It's worth the fucking investment because these people know what you cannot know until you know it.
Mhm.
And so they can show it to you so much faster and you'll make way less mistakes. And especially when in my field, because I am directly impacting other people's conscious relationship to the deepest issues of their lives, I don't think that it is in alignment or responsible to do that
Mm.
without supervision
Yeah.
and really make sure that what I'm saying to people is like not a projection of some shit that somebody said to me last week.
Mm. So good. Oh my gosh. Okay. So, what have been your favorite recent purchases for your business and for your pleasure?
Well, I sent you the links to the things I bought myself from Free People as a celebration for finishing the launch. I got an astrology hat, which I'm very excited about. I got a car. Her name is Poppy. She is an Aqua Prius Prime 2021 with white leather interior, and I love her.
Oh my god.
Um,
Such a sexy car.
so hot. She's like a little fin. She looks like a dolphin. She really does look like a dolphin. Um, I bought a mastermind. So I'm doing Amanda Bucci's Flourish and Conquer mastermind, which is only 6-figure entrepreneurs, which is really exciting to be like in a group of other women to have such a big container for like, oh, which payment system takes the lowest percentage fee and like have that kind of support.
Yeah.
Um, so that's been fun. What else did I buy? Oh, pranic healing with Annalise every single week, the entire launch. And to receive her feedback, Annalise is one of my best friends and we've been friends for a really long time too. So I've had treatments from her often, but not regularly. And I came home and I was like, I want you to work on me every single week during the launch because what she does is basically like cleaning your aura. She like removes whatever needs to be taken out and like puts in whatever you want to invite in like in your auric field. She also does acupuncture and like craniosacral and all this other stuff. But I went to her every week and I think just like you, I couldn't have done the launch
Mm.
without her.
Mm.
um the big thing that she said that she saw in me, which I was like, that doesn't exist, I have no idea what you're talking about, was excess pride.
Ah.
Because like I removed a lot of excess pride today and I'm like, I don't have excess pride. Like open to like knowing that I'm wrong. Like I listen to people like what you're talking about. But the excess pride was same thing that refused to not be liked. It was like, I thought it was not being liked, but to me, it was like righteous need to prove myself, which is so manifester, like to inform.
Yeah.
Self theme is anger, all of that. So working with her really helped.
Sorry, I just have to cut in right there of like a contemplation that I always come back, I regularly come back to is, am I okay with people being wrong about me? It's such a hard one, you know, like we all, I think maybe it's a Virgo thing. Maybe it's a woman thing. Maybe it's a people of society thing of like, are you okay with people thinking you're a snake oil salesman? Are you okay with them thinking you're sleazy or thinking you're basic or like all of the things and like you just showing up exactly how you are? And are you okay? Because I think it's a huge visibility thing or
Mm.
changing yourself, contorting yourself to control what other people think of you. Are you okay with them being wrong about you?
Are you asking me?
No, are you? Oh no, I think no. It's something you're
I
like.
was like, am I supposed to answer?
No, 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 no. You can. You're welcome to. But it's more of like I think we're programmed to care so much about what other people think about us, and
Mhm. Yeah. And receiving what they think about us as perhaps what we might imagine ourselves to think about ourselves. Like, oh, if they think that, like, this is where I tend to go with that train of thought of like, did I fuck up? And then I obsess over it for like a week. And Annalise takes that out.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, in our last few minutes, because I know you have to go, tell people how they can work with you. What are you offering right now? How can they do all the things with you?
Yes, thank you. So I do one-on-one coaching for personal empowerment and reshaping your relationship to the things that you want but do not yet have, whether that is a relationship, a six-figure business, a self-love practice, a spiritual practice, really inviting in what it is that you want and actualizing your goals, maybe not as quickly as you would like, because Sam and I haven't been able to figure that out either.
No, I manifest pretty quickly, so
Excuse me. I'm only speaking for myself. I take that back. But making shit happen in your life. And particularly if you're looking at like, I have so much animosity to my romantic relationship or to my like relationship with self. That's something I really specialize in supporting clients with. Um, I have a monthly full moon club. It is donation based, so you can come and pay what you can. Every month, we donate to a different charity, usually some form of COVID relief or Black Lives Matter or Black trans women, or we did Honduras relief. We did Stacey Abrams' Fair Fight for the Georgia Senate runoffs last month. So we do a different charity every single month, and it's an incredible space to meet like minded spiritual community, get a really good astrological forecast, meditate. Learn more about like my style and who I am if you're curious about coaching but like want a little bit more first. I announce all of my offerings on my email list, which you can sign up for at my website, which is my name, carakovacs.com. And I send out weekly newsletters and lots of fun stuff like journal prompts and spiritual insights and song and recipe recommendations and kind of like whatever I think is fun. And then you can follow me on Instagram, which is my name, again, Cara Kovacs with an underscore. I'm sure you'll link it so they can find it.
yes, all the things in the show notes. Please check her out. She's fantastic and amazing and brilliant.
Thank you. So are you.
Well, thank you all for joining us this week. If you want to give us some feedback on all of the things that we've been talking about today, head on over to The Dirty Alchemy on Instagram and Cara Kovacs underscore on Instagram. And we want to chat with you. So talk to you next week, guys. Bye, Cara.
Bye.